On today's episode, we're going to be talking about the 1989 and 1990 NBA champion Detroit Pistons, affectionately known as the Bad Boys.
Take a trip with me, baby, let's meander. Going through so many Great Lakes Sanders. See the sights, highlights of Barry Sanders. Come along with the random Michigander.
All right, everyone, welcome to the Random Michigander. I am your host, Brandon Griffiths. I'll be providing a regular dose of Great Lakes state-related topics in podcast form, from history and events to locations, popular culture and sports, as well as food and drinks, and basically anything else that might help you learn more about the great U.S. state of Michigan. This podcast is available to listen to on all the major platforms by searching The Random Michigander. Click follow on the main page on your preferred service, and turn on notifications to be alerted about all the latest episodes, which I upload on Thursdays at 5 a.m. Eastern. I'm also on social media at _random_Michigander. I have pages on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. Today, we're diving deep into a truly iconic era of Michigan sports history. We're not just talking about a team here, we're talking about a phenomenon, a cultural touchstone that put Detroit basketball on the map in a way no one could have predicted. We're talking about the Detroit Pistons of the late 80s and early 90s, the one, the only Bad Boys. For many of us who grew up in Michigan during that time, the Bad Boys weren't just a basketball team, they were an extension of the city itself. Gritty, hardworking, unapologetically tough, and often misunderstood. They embodied the spirit of Detroit, and for a glorious couple of years, they were the best darn basketball team on the planet, bringing 2 NBA championships home to the Motor City. And I want to be clear, I was born in 1987, so I was way too young to really know about this team or appreciate it. And this is more of kind of just a study for me to explain more to you and understand better myself what this team was all about. So, this is the story of how they rose from being a perennial playoff contender to back champions. We're going to highlight the key players who made it all happen, revisit some of their most memorable games in this stretch, understand their contentious reputation around the league, and finally, cement their lasting legacy. Buckle up because this is going to be a nice little ride down memory lane filled with hard fouls, incredible plays, and enough drama to fill a Hollywood script. Now, to be clear, before they were the Bad Boys, they were just the Pistons, a team with potential, certainly, but one that kept running into brick walls in the form of basketball royalty, the Boston Celtics and the Los Angeles Lakers. In the early to mid 80s, we saw the emergence of some key pieces. At the heart of it all was the undisputed leader, the maestro on the court, Isaiah Thomas. Drafted in 1981, Isaiah was pure magic, quick, dazzling, with incredible court vision and a killer instinct. He was the engine that drove everything, but even Isaiah couldn't do it alone. Enter the enforcer, the man who earned the most cheers from opposing fans, but was absolutely beloved in Detroit, Bill Laimbeer. Drafted in 1979 by the Cavs, he found his true calling in the Motor City. Laimbeer wasn't flashy, but he was tough, a master of intimidation, and surprisingly skilled for a big man with a decent outside shot. He would famously or infamously lead the league in hip checks and icy stares as marks of his intimidation tactics. And then there was the good boy amongst the bad boys, the perfect counterpoint to Isaiah's fire and Laimbeer's aggression, Joe Dumars. Drafted in 1985, Dumars was a quiet assassin, a defensive wizard who could shut down the league's most prolific scorers, and an incredibly efficient offensive player. His calm demeanor was a stark contrast to the team's overall persona, making him a truly unique and essential piece of their team. Other crucial players began to join the ranks. Rick Mahorn, the bruising power forward, formed the Bruise Brothers alongside Lambier. Dennis Rodman, the enigmatic athletic marvel, started his career as a defensive stopper and rebounding machine before he became the flamboyant superstar we later knew him as. Vinnie Johnson, also known as the Microwave, was the instant offense off the bench, capable of heating up in a flash. John Sally, the Spider, brought length and shot blocking to the front court. And guiding this eclectic mix of talent was Chuck Daly, a true player's coach, a master psychologist who knew how to manage diverse personalities and get the absolute most out of them. Daly instilled a defensive first mentality, which was a toughness that became their hallmark. He truly understood how to make this group a cohesive winning unit. The team was building, learning, and most importantly, gaining invaluable playoff experience. They got a taste of the big stage, and they learned just how painful it was to fall short. In the 1987 Eastern Conference Finals, they met the Boston Celtics, a dynasty in their own right, led by Larry Bird. This series was a brutal back and forth affair, showcasing the Pistons' burgeoning grit. The defining moment of that series, and perhaps a turning point for the Pistons, came in Game 5 on May 26th of 1987. Pistons were up by one with mere seconds left, holding the ball, seemingly on their way to a crucial road victory. Then the infamous Isaiah Thomas turnover came. Larry Bird stole the inbound pass and dished it to Dennis Johnson for the game-winning layup. Heartbreak. Utter soul-crushing heartbreak. The Celtics went on to win the series in 7 games. That loss, that pain, it fueled them. It hardened them. It taught them what it would take to win. They weren't just good at this point, they were becoming mean. They were tired of being the bridesmaid. They were ready to crash the party. The 1987-88 season saw the Bad Boys truly embrace their identity. The term Bad Boys wasn't originally coined by the team, but rather by the media, often in a derogatory way, to describe their physical, sometimes aggressive style of play. But the Pistons and the city of Detroit owned it. They wore it as a badge of honor. They became the villains that the league loved to hate, and Detroit loved them for it. And let's be clear, their play was relentless. Their defense was suffocating. They weren't afraid to get physical, to get into their opponents' heads. They perfected what became known as the Jordan rules. Michael Jordan, the undisputed king of the league, was carving up defenses, but the Pistons devised a strategy to make his life a living hell. It wasn't just about hard fouls, it was about constant pressure, double teams, funneling him to help, and wearing him down mentally and physically. Isaiah Thomas would later explain that it was never personal, it was just what they had to do to win. The 1988 playoffs were another crucible. They swept the Washington Bullets, then dispatched the Chicago Bulls in 5 games, showcasing their physical dominance over Jordan and his emerging Bulls. This set up a rematch with their tormentors, the Boston Celtics, in the Eastern Conference Finals. This time, there was a different feeling in the air. The Pistons were more than hopeful, they were confident at this point. And the series against Boston was a true clash of titans. Pistons finally vanquished their nemesis in Game 6 on May 27th, 1988, a 95-90 victory that sent them to the NBA Finals for the first time in team history. The celebration in Detroit was immense, and they felt that they had slayed the dragon. But of course, the journey wasn't over. Their reward? A date with the Showtime Lakers, led by Magic Johnson and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. The 1988 NBA Finals was a 7-game epic, a series that truly defined the Bad Boys. The Pistons took Game 1 in Los Angeles, shocking the defending champions. They held Kareem to just 8 points, a testament to their suffocating defense. The series would go back and forth, with each team trading blows. Game 6 on June 19th, 1988, is etched into the minds of Pistons fans. Isaiah Thomas delivered one of the most heroic finals performances in history, scoring an incredible 25 points in the third quarter on a severely sprained ankle. He limped up and down the court, willing his team to stay in the game. It was a superhuman effort, the kind of gritty determination that perfectly encapsulated the bad boys mentality. But despite Isaiah's heroics, the Lakers narrowly won Game 6 by 1 point, 103 to 102, thanks to a controversial foul call on Bill Laimbeer in the final seconds, allowing Kareem to hit 2 free throws for the win. Many Pistons fans still believe to this day that they were robbed of a championship right then and there. Even Lakers coach Pat Riley has since admitted that Kareem wasn't fouled on the play. So the Pistons, heartbroken once again, lost Game 7 by 4 points. Another excruciating loss, another lesson learned. The sting of defeat was profound, but something fundamental had shifted. They knew they belonged, they knew they were close, and they had every intention to come back. The disappointment of 1988's finals only hardened their resolve. The 1988-89 season was about one thing: redemption. They dominated the regular season, finishing with a league best 63-19 record. They were a well-oiled machine. Their chemistry was undeniable. Their hunger was insatiable. So the playoffs began, and the Pistons steamrolled through the Eastern Conference. They swept the Boston Celtics in the first round, a sweet revenge from years past. They then dispatched the Milwaukee Bucks in 4 games. The Eastern Conference Finals saw a familiar foe, Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls, but this time the Pistons were just on another level. Bulls were improving, but the Bad Boys' Jordan rules were still in full effect. They smothered Jordan, held him to just 18 points in Game 5, and ultimately closed out the series in Game 6 on June 2nd, 1989, winning 103-94 in Chicago. They had proven their dominance over the league's brightest star. And so, for the second consecutive year, the Detroit Pistons were in the NBA Finals. Their opponent, the same Los Angeles Lakers from the prior year. This time, the Lakers were battered. Magic Johnson and Byron Scott both suffered hamstring injuries early in the series, severely impacting their firepower. The Pistons, however, were not going to let up. They saw their opportunity and seized it with an unyielding grip. They didn't care about the Lakers' injuries, they cared about that championship trophy. They swept the Lakers in a dominant 4 games. The decisive moment came in Game 4 on June 13th, 1989, a 105-97 victory in Los Angeles. The Pistons were relentless, suffocating the short-handed Lakers. The Detroit bench, particularly Vinnie Johnson, the microwave, played a huge role, providing crucial scoring punches. The final buzzer sounded, and the collective roar from Michigan could be heard across the nation. The Detroit Pistons were the NBA champions. That image of Isaiah Thomas, tears streaming down his face, embracing his teammates, holding that trophy aloft, is iconic. And the unexpected yet completely deserved Finals MVP was Joe Dumars. His incredible defense on Magic Johnson and his efficient scoring were pivotal throughout the series. It was a moment of pure, unadulterated joy for a city that had waited so long for a championship. And of course, with one championship under their belt, the question immediately became, could they do it again? Could these bad boys repeat? The target was firmly on their backs. Every team wanted to be the one to knock them off. The 1989-90 season saw them maintain their intensity, finishing with a 59-23 record. They weren't just physically tough at this point, they were mentally tougher than any team in the league. As Isaiah Thomas often said, they truly believed they were mentally tougher than any of their opponents. The 1990 playoffs were another gauntlet. They swept the Indiana Pacers in the first round, then came a brutal 7-game series against the New York Knicks, a team known for its own physical play. Pistons, however, proved they could out-tough anyone. They prevailed in Game 7 on May 15th of 1990 in a hard-fought battle at the Palace of Auburn Hills. Their biggest test once again came in the Eastern Conference Finals, a rematch with the Chicago Bulls. This was personal. Michael Jordan and the Bulls were hungry, and they had improved significantly from the prior season. This series was a war of attrition, a true test of wills. In this series against the Chicago Bulls, the Pistons once again employed their Jordan rules to perfection. They wore down Jordan and his teammates. The series went 7 grueling games, and in Game 7 on June 3rd, 1990, at the Palace, the Pistons absolutely dominated, winning 93-7 over Chicago. So the only thing that stood between the Pistons and their repeat was their opponent in the 1990 NBA Finals, the Portland Trailblazers, a talented, high-scoring team led by Clyde Drexler and Terry Porter. Many pundits believed this was the Blazers' time, that their athletic, fast-paced game would be too much for the aging, physical Pistons. But, of course, the bad boys had other ideas. They proved they could play any style. They slowed the game down when they needed to, ramped up the defensive intensity, and relied on their championship experience. The series would go 5 games, and the Pistons sealed their second consecutive championship in Game 5 on June 14th, 1990, with a thrilling 92-90 victory in Portland. The game came down to the wire, and Vinny the Microwave Johnson hit a clutch go ahead jumper with zero point 0.7 seconds left on the clock, famously known as the Vinny Johnson shot. It was a fitting end, with a role player stepping up in the biggest moment, perfectly embodying the team first mentality. The Detroit Pistons were back to back NBA champions. Isaiah Thomas was named the finals MVP for his outstanding play and leadership. The repeat to the beat was complete. These bad boys had cemented their place in NBA history. The reputation of the bad boys in the league was, to put it mildly, polarizing. They were almost universally hated outside of Michigan and especially outside of the Pistons fans. They were called thugs, dirty players, and villains. Their physical style of play and their unwavering confidence, coupled with their willingness to confront opponents, it rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. Bill Laimbeer is considered by many to be the face of this quote unquote dirty reputation this era of the Pistons had, but it was a team wide approach. They were masters of psychological warfare. They got into their opponents' heads. They didn't just beat you, they broke you, and they embraced every bit of it. They loved being the bad guys, it just fueled them. But in the eyes of Detroit Pistons fans, they were heroes. In a city often overlooked and maligned, the Pistons were a source of immense pride. They represented the toughness, resilience, and unapologetic spirit of Detroit. They didn't back down from anyone, just like the city itself. They were a reflection of their community, and that bond was unbreakable. Their impact on the NBA was profound. They challenged the prevailing notion of what a championship team should look like. In an era dominated by offensive superstars like Bird, Magic, and later Jordan, the Pistons showed that defense, physical play, and relentless team basketball could win championships. They made defense an art form, forcing the league to reevaluate its rules and approach to the game. But of course, their legacy is a complex one. They broke up the Celtic Laker duopoly that the NBA had been seeing for so many years. They established a blueprint for how to contend with and eventually overcome the great Michael Jordan, paving the way for the Bulls' later dynasty, though I'm sure the Bulls fans would rather never admit that. They proved that grit and toughness could overcome pure talent. And beyond the championships, the Bad Boys created an unforgettable cultural brand. The skull and crossbones logo, the Bad Boys moniker, resonated far beyond basketball. It became a symbol of defiance, of an underdog mentality, of a team that played by its own rules. Jalen Rose, a Detroit native and later member of Michigan's Fab Five, often speaks about how he loved everything about the Bad Boys, how they played, and how they didn't back down to anyone. Naturally, the team eventually faded. Rick Mahorn was gone after the first championship due to the expansion draft of the Orlando Magic and the Minnesota Timberwolves. Dennis Rodman's unique personality eventually wound him up on the San Antonio Spurs in 1993. From there, he went to the Detroit rival Chicago Bulls in 1995, where he won 3 championships with the team, who was still led by Michael Jordan. Isaiah Thomas and Bill Laimbeer eventually retired, but the memories, the championships, and the undeniable impact of the Bad Boys remained. The Bad Boys era Pistons were a great basketball team. They were a moment in time, a reflection of a city, a testament to the power of unity, toughness, and an unwavering will to win. They defied expectations, embraced their villainous role, and forever changed the landscape of the National Basketball Association. Their story serves as a reminder that sometimes to achieve greatness, you have to be willing to be disliked. You have to be willing to do the hard work, to play the dirty game, to out tough your opponents. They weren't always pretty, but they were always effective, and they were undeniably champions 2 times over. To many NBA fans, the Bad Boys era is probably just statistics and highlights, just like any other years where their team doesn't win. But for Detroit, it's the feeling of anticipation before every game, the roar of the crowd at the Palace, the collective gasp when Lambier sent someone to the floor, the pure elation of these 2 championships. It's a fundamental part of our Michigan identity. So here's to the Bad Boys, the unlikeliest and one of the more short lived dynasties, the team that taught the NBA what it meant to be truly tough, and the team that brought unbridled joy to the streets of Detroit. Their legacy isn't just in the banners they hung, it's in the spirit they ignited, a spirit that still burns brightly in the heart of every true Michigander. All right, everyone, this has been a discussion on the 1989 and 1990 NBA champion Detroit Pistons Bad Boys team. I hope you enjoyed it today. I figured it was a good one to cover now that the NBA Finals has just come to a close. The Oklahoma City Thunder won it this year, and I don't know many people that were too excited about that outside of Oklahoma City fans. But thank you for stopping by. Have a good rest of your day. Bye now.
Brandon at Random Reviews Entertainment.